Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at the Four Prentices of London by Thomas Heywood, possibly written for the Worcester's Men. It certainly feels like it in the shape of the script that I'm looking at in front of me. And a number of texts we've done recently for potentially Worcester's Men. And yes, this is a play by Thomas Heywood. I think we're pretty certain about that, from somewhere around 1601 onwards. We don't know precisely when it comes about, but sometime from that point, a few years after, potentially. It's not got a massive cast, which is a good thing, because we don't have a lot of readers. In fact, we don't quite have enough readers for all the parts, but fingers crossed we'll get through this in a moderately comprehensive way. So today, reading first prologue, Earl, presenter, and Tancred is...
Steve Longstaffe from the northwest of England.
Reading the second prologue, Charles and Lady, is...
Hello, I'm Lynn. My normal role is I play a college composition teacher here in the northwestern United States.
Reading Godfrey and Villain is... Oh, no, not Villain. Godfrey and Clown, sorry, is...
You're trying to confuse me already. It's Alan in Suffolk.
And reading third prologue, Eustace and Captain, is...
Lois in London, southeast England.
Usual early modern content warnings will apply. This play might be quite problematic coming up. I'm just going to put a blanket one out there. There's might be some issues that may not be immediately apparent in this session, but will probably become increasingly apparent as we go further forward. But I'm going to leave it at that. There's going to be some bad stuff coming up, but maybe not. We're going to start with an opening prologue to everything. Enter in 3 black cloaks at 3 doors. Prologues.
What mean you, my masters, to appear thus before your times? And do you not know that I am the prologue? Do you not see this long black velvet cloak upon my back? Have you not sounded thrice? And do I not look pale, as fearing to be out in my speech? Nay, have I not all the signs of a prologue about me? And to what end come you to interrupt me?
I have a prologue too to speak.
And I another.
Superfluous. More than ever I heard of. 3 prologues to one play?
Have you not seen 3 ropes to toll 1 bell, 3 doors to 1 house, 3 ways to 1 town?
I grant you. I never heard of any that had 3 heads to 1 body, but Cerberus. What does your prologue mean?
I come to excuse the name of the play.
I, the errors in the play.
And I, the author that made the play. Touching the name, why is it called True and Strange, or the Four Prentices of London? Gentlemen that heard the subject discourse says it was not possible to be true. None here are bound to believe it.
'Tis true that Alexander at 30 years of age conquered the whole world, but strange he should do so. If we should not believe things recorded in former ages, we were not worthy that succeeding times should believe things done in our ages.
Authority have you for your history? I am one of those that will believe nothing that is not in the chronicle.
Our authority is a manuscript, a book writ in parchment, which not being public nor general in the world, we rather thought fit to exemplify to the public censure things concealed and obscured, such as are not common with everyone, than such historical tales as everyone can tell by the fire in winter. Had ye not rather, for novelty's sake, see Jerusalem ye never saw, than London that ye see hourly? So much touching the name of our history.
You have satisfied me, and I hope all that hear me. And now, what have you to speak concerning the errors in the play?
We acknowledge none. For the errors we could find, we would willingly amend. But if these clear-sighted gentlemen with the eyes of their judgments, looking exactly into us, find any imperfections which are hid from ourselves, Our request is you would rather look over them than through them, not with a troubled eye that makes one object to seem two, but with a favorable eye, which hath power in itself to make many to seem none at all.
Oh, now I understand you. 3 prologues to our play. Pardon me, you have need of 300. You're all little enough. But to end our beginning, in a word, thus much by the patience of these gentlemen, spectators, should you oppose your judgments against us, where we are 3, which some would think too many, were we 3,000, we think ourselves too few. Our author submits his labours to you, as the authors of all the content he hath within this circumference. But for your sakes, this only we dare say, we promised you and will perform a play.
And exit the 3 prologues. It's quite nice, this, because, of course, it's riffing a bit on sort of the conventions of what prologues do. And it's like, which prologue are you going to do? Well, I'm doing this one, this kind of prologue. Oh, I'm doing this kind of prologue. I'm doing, and I quite like the idea of 3 prologues meet. 3 prologues in search of an author.
Yeah.
Lynn.
Yeah, well, one thing I just wanted to draw attention to is that lovely little details, like, don't I look pale because I'm afraid I'm going to forget my lines? That just sort of a reference to stage fright. It makes this, I don't know, it really strikes me as something who comes from somebody who knows what he's talking about. Actors get stage fright. We always have.
And the person who has to open the play being the most likely one to feel it as well. And also potentially if... some thoughts about the nature of prologues, that they're the kind of text that gets swapped around a lot, that maybe whoever's doing the prologue genuinely only got it the other day, whereas the rest of the play they've sort of bedded in a bit in their memory, whereas the prologue might be a bit less...
Right, there's no one else on stage to cover for you if you screw up. So, yeah.
And also, if the audience is going to be rowdy, this is one time they might choose to do it.
Yeah, they might really go. Part of your job is to calm everybody down and get them ready for the show. Stephen?
It reminded me a little bit, I don't know if people know the play Noises Off, but there's a bit in that where there's about 4 people dressed as cat burglars all come on. And they're all trying to do the same thing, and then they end up kind of speaking the same lines as one another. It could be like that. I mean, I think if you were going to do it now, you'd want more than the velvet cloak, wouldn't you? You'd want this kind of completely fantastical garb, and somebody walks on, and then there's somebody with equally fantastic, exactly the same garb, and you could do all sorts of nice, funny things with that, if you wanted to stop the play starting, that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, and of course it references that the play potentially has a separate title, so it also has the titles True and Strange, which I quite like as a title. I mean, it's less explanatory, but it's quite fun. It's sort of Ripley's Believe It or Not, which and it vaguely references what's going to happen in the play, in the sense of, hey, wouldn't it be great if you can go and travel and see what Jerusalem's like, rather than what it's like in London. You don't want to see what's around the corner. You see that every day. You want fantasy. You want to be taken out of life, though potentially where you get taken to might be an issue. Anyway, Lynn.
So I was just last week listening to a lecture series on the intellectual history of the 17th and 18th century, basically the Enlightenment and the decades that preceded it. And this was just the time when thinking people, when philosophers, people who, sort of sat around thinking like, what is the nature of reality, were starting to shift from authority being the most important source of knowledge to observation and real world data, what we would call experimentation, being the ultimate source of knowledge. Up to this point, if Aristotle said it was true, it was true. And this is just about the time when that is starting to break down, and that way of looking at the world and being in the world is shifting to sort of our modern, what's the evidence kind of way of being in the world. And that reference to, well, it's in a book. It's in a book. It's in a manuscript on parchment.
Hmm.
I think resonates with that shift, that the beginning to doubt just because someone wrote it down, we don't necessarily have to believe it's true.
Mm. Yes, and we've got these different voices arguing slightly different angles on that point, and it's quite nicely done. I enjoyed it. I don't know whether it would survive to a modern production. I kind of feel it works, but it may or may not be helpful in setting up for a modern. That's one to play with. So we're going to go to our first proper scene of the play. I'm going to call it scene 1, even though it's sort of labelled as scene 2. But enter the old Earl of Boulogne and his daughter Bella Franca.
Daughter, thou seest how fortune turns her wheel. We that but late were mounted up aloft, lulled in the skirt of that inconstant dame, are now thrown headlong by her ruthless hand to kiss that earth whereon our feet should stand. What censuring eye that sees me thus deject would take this shape to be that famous duke, which hath made Bullen through the world renowned, and all our race with fame and honour crowned?
But, father, how can you endure a slave to triumph in your fortunes, and here stand in soul deject and banished from your land?
I'll tell thee, girl. The French king and myself upon some terms grew in a strange debate, taking careful vantage of the time, whilst I, with all my powers, in aid of William the Norman Duke, now English conqueror, was busily employed. He seized my right, planting another, and supplanting me. This is the ground of my extremity.
If, for King William's sake, now conqueror, you lost your birthright and inheritance, how comes it that he sees you in this state and lifts not up your fortune's ruinate?
Conquered kingdom is not easily kept. He hath so much ado to guard his own that mine is buried in oblivion. I'm forced to lose the name of Earl and live in London like a citizen. My 4 sons are bound prentice to 4 trades. Godfrey, my eldest boy, I have made a mercer. Guy, my next son, enrolled in goldsmith's trade. My 3rd son, Charles, bound to an haberdasher. And young Eustace is a grocer. All high-born, yet of the city trades they have no scorn. Thus bare necessity hath made me seek some refuge to sustain our poverty. And having placed my sons in such a sort, the little wealth I have left I leave to thee. Myself will travel to the Holy Land, and here, ere I lie within the earth's vast womb, pay my devout vows at my Saviour's tomb.
Was that the cause you sent for my 4 brothers?
Their wished sight will cheer my aged heart, and I will bless them all before I part.
Enter Godfrey, Guy, Charles, and Eustace like apprentices.
Wonder, brothers, why my father has sent for us thus early. That, all business set apart, we must meet together this morning.
I know not the reason. I had much ado to get leave of my master to be spared from my attendance in the shop and serving of customers.
Faith, as soon as I heard but the messenger say my father must speak with me, I left my Tancred to guard the conduit, and away came I.
I beshrew him. I should have been at breakfast with 2 or 3 good boys this morning, but that match is disappointed by this meeting.
See where my brothers are already come.
Godfrey, Guy, Charles, young Eustace, all at once, divide a father's blessing in 4 parts, and share my prayers amongst you equally. First, Godfrey, tell me how thou likest thy trade, and knowing in thy thoughts what thou hast been, how canst thou brook to be as thou art now?
And must obey, since I've undertook to serve my master truly for 7 years. My duty shall both answer that desire, and my old master's profit every way. I praise that city which made princes tradesmen, where that man, noble or ignoble born, that would not practice some mechanic skill which might support his state in penury, should die the death, not suffer like a drone to suck the honey from a public hive. I hold it no disparage to my birth, though I be born an earl, to have the skill and the full knowledge of the mercer's trade. And were I now to be create anew, it should not grieve me to have spent my time the secrets of so rich a trade to know, by which advantage and much profits grow.
Well hast thou done to overcome thy fate, making thy mind conform to thy state. Thou art my guy, the goldsmith's faculty.
As a good refuge in extremity. Say I be born a prince and be cast down by some sinister chance or fortune's frown. Say I be banished when I have a trade, and in myself a means to purchase wealth. Though my state waste and towering honours fall, that still stays with me in the extremest of all.
Says my third son Charles.
If I should say I would not brook those bonds which God and fate and you have tied me in, you would be preaching disobedience. Or I should say the city trades are, or should I say the city trades are base for such a great man's son to take on them. Your fatherly regard would straight advise me to chastise my rebellious thoughts. And say, son, you by this may live another day. Therefore, as my two brothers, I reply, you ask me if I like it, I say aye.
What says my youngest boy?
Father, I say hawking is a pretty sport and hunting is a princely exercise. To ride a great horse, oh, 'tis admirable.
Eustace, I know it is, but to my question, how canst thou brook to be apprentice, boy?
Methinks I could endure it for 7 years. Did not my master keep me in too much? I cannot go to breakfast in a morning with my kind mates and fellow prentices, but he cries, Eustace, one bid Eustace come. And my name, Eustace, is in every room. If I might once a week but see a tilting, 6 days I would fall into my business close, and ere the week's end win that idle day. He will not let me see a mustering, nor in a May Day morning fetch in May. I'm no sooner gotten to the fencing school to play a venue with some friend I bring, but Eustace, Eustace, all the street must ring. He will allow me not 1 hour for sport. I must not strike a football in the street, but he will frown. Not view the dancing school, but he will miss me straight. Not suffer me to so much take up cudgels in the street, but he will chide. I must not go to buffets. No, though I be provoked. That's the hell. Were it not for this, I could endure it well.
Sons, ye must all forget your birth and honours and look into the time's necessity. I know you are persuaded. Think not, sons, the name of prentice can disparage you. For howsoever of you esteemed they be, even kings themselves have of these trades been free. I made a vow to see the Holy Land, and in the same my Saviour's sepulchre, having so well disposed you. I will now first bless you, boys, and then prefer my vow.
With much ado, I do contain my spirit within these bands that have enclosed me round, though now this case the noble sun does shroud. Time shall behold that sun break through this cloud.
My genius bids my soul have patience, and says I shall not be apprentice long. I scorn it not, but yet my spirits aim to have this hand catch at the crown of fame.
And haberdasher is the trade I use, but the soft wool feels in my hand like steel. I could wish each hat comes through my hand were turned into an helmet, and each helmet upon a soldier's head. For me to lead war is the walk which I desire to tread.
I am a grocer, yet had rather see a fine gilt sword hung in a velvet sheath than the best Barbary sugar in the world, were it a freight of price inestimable. I have a kind of prompting in my brain that says, though I be bound to a sweet trade, I must forego it. I keep too much in. I would fast from meat and drink a summer's day to see swords clash or view a desperate fray.
Bridle these humours, sons, expel them clean, and your high spirits within your breasts contain, whilst I my tedious pilgrimage prepare to spend my age in poverty and prayer. My firstborn, first farewell, my second next. Charles, Eustace, daughter, here my blessings say, your wishes bear me on my sacred way.
Even to the place you travel, there to ascend with those devout prayers you to heaven commend.
Exit Earl.
Brothers, since we are now as strangers here, yet by our Father's provident care so placed, that we may live secure from penury, so let us please our masters by our care, that we our ruined fortunes may repair.
Brother, if I knew where to go to war, I would not stay in London 1 hour longer.
An hour? By heaven, I would not stay a minute.
A minute, not a moment. Would you put a moment into 1,000 parts? That 1,000th part would I not linger, might I go to war. Why, I would presently run from my master, did I but hear where were a drum to follow.
Would you so, brother?
Yeah, good faith, sweet sister. I would show him as fine a pair of heels, as light and nimble as any of the neatest corkshoe in all the town turns up. I would, if faith.
And leave me here alone? Alone? Why, sister, can you be left alone amongst multitudes? London is full of people everywhere.
Well, leave this jesting. We forget ourselves. Sister, we'll have you to our father's house to enjoy the small possessions left you there. Return we to our masters and our charge, left seeking this our loitering to excuse, with forged inventions we their ears abuse.
Sound a drum within, softly.
I hear a drum. I've as much power to sit, sort out my wares and scribble on the shopboard, when I but hear the music of a drum, as to abstain from meat when I am hungry. I know what news before I stir a foot.
By heaven, I am enamored of this tune. 'Tis the best music in the world to me.
My legs are marching straight when I but hear it. And, oh, I could lead a drum with a good grace, if I but saw behind me 100 soldiers follow in even ranks. Had I but hear a band of men to lead, methinks I could do wonders. Oh, 'tis brave to be a captain and command to have.
After a drum, a captain who's someone completely different enters with a proclamation.
All commanders, captains, lieutenants, gentlemen of companies, sergeants, corporals, or common soldiers whatsoever that will accompany to the holy wars at Jerusalem Robert, Duke of Normandy, the king's son, they shall have pay and place according to their deserts. And so, God save King William, surnamed the Conqueror.
Exit drum and captain.
Ran-tan-tan, now by St. George he tells gallant news. I'll home no more. I'll run away tonight.
If I cast bowl or spoon or salt again before I have beheld Jerusalem, let me turn pagan.
Hats and caps adieu, for I must leave you if the drums say true.
Nay, then have with you, brothers, for my spirit, with as much vigour hath burst forth as thine, and has hardly been restrained as yours. Give me your hands, I will consort you too. Let's try what London prentices can do.
For my trade's sake, if good success I have, the grocer's arms shall in mine ensign wave.
And if my valour bring me to command, the goldsmith's arms shall in my colours stand.
So, of us all, let us in one ship launch all together, and as we're brothers, so let us enter zealous amity, and still prevailed by our common sense. So our united strength. I know our hearts are one. Sister, farewell. Trust me in vain. You should persuade our stay, for we are bent. Consort us with your prayers.
Farewell.
Farewell.
God,
Heaven.
Fate.
Fortune.
make us happy men to win.
Where.
Vanquish.
Overcome.
And exeunt the four prentices, leaving Bella. Amen. Have you all left me midst a world of strangers, here only to myself, not to protect me, or to defend me from apparent wrong? Since it is so, I'll follow after you. In some disguise I will pursue their steps, and unto God and fortune yield myself. Towards sea they are gone, and unto sea must I, a virgin's unexpected fate to try. Exit Bella. So, quite a lot going on here. So it's a history play. Unexpectedly, wasn't expecting that. Set during the very historically accurate reign of William the Conqueror. I'm sure this is all true. It's true and strange. Well, maybe the strange is right. I don't think at the time of William Conqueror the guilds and livery companies of London quite functioned this way. I don't know precisely how far back that all runs in the way that they would understand it in late Elizabethan England. But hey, what can you do? But I'm sure there was something similar. I'm not quite sure precisely which engagements to Jerusalem were going on at this time. It seems a bit out of step from my memory off the top of my head, but hey, who knows? So a lot going on here. Anyway, Alan.
Yeah, First Crusade was, I think, well after, 50 years or so after William the Conk.
So, maybe just about. But hey, let's not worry about that too much. It's interesting because it's really concerned about the nature of apprenticeship, and we've got these sort of different portrayals of what it's like. I liked Eustace's particularly. I thought Eustace talked about printing. Oh, my master's just no fun. Every time I want to go off and do anything funny, he immediately calls me back. It's just not fair, and it's just clearly Eustace is possibly spending a bit too much time not working. I get the impression that he's. But his master may have a point. I did like Eustace quite a lot. Stephen.
Well, apprentices, I mean, it's quite a long span, isn't it? I mean, they generally start at the age of 14, don't they? So you could imagine, there's sort of like this sullen teen, it's kind of, it's all so unfair.
Yeah.
And of course, they're apprentices, but they're also noble apprentices. So it's this weird sort of way of working two different things into one play, which is interesting. Lois.
Yeah, it's funny that, Eustace is a grocer, and he's going to have the arms of a grocer in his shield. Of course, this makes me think of The Night of the Burning Pestle, which we've read, where a grocer named Rafe decides to take up arms and have a burning pestle in his shield. I think this is one of the plays that's being parodied there.
Mm. Yes, because it feels very parodiable because it felt quite cardboard cutout. I was slightly overdoing it in the way I was saying my dialogue, but it did feel like plucky adventure, huzzah kind of dialogue. It didn't feel like there was. It felt like it was quite surface in places. It felt very fun in many ways, but it didn't feel like even though this is actually there's some really nice details about sort of being apprentice, which I'm sure resonated for people then. It does feel very. It's not quite jolly hockey sticks, but it's that kind of thing. And then of course we've got Bella at the end. I quite liked the way that Bella's sitting there. Well, sod you! I'm going on. If you're all going off on you've left me behind. I'm not staying behind. So that was quite nice. If a little last minute. Lynn.
Yeah, it's sort of bouncing off that cardboard cutout observation. I get the sense that it's actually pretty self-consciously silly and cartoony. I mean, I wouldn't say cartoony at the time, but you know, it knows what it's doing. I get the sense that it's not pretending to be deeper than that.
Yes, and that's an interesting question when you come to text that might be spoofing it, if it's already in a sense its own
Sort of
not quite
self-parody.
spoof, you know, it's on
Yeah.
that sort of tangent, and how that plays. If it is a Worcester's Men player, the kind of repertoire that they've got together, because and if it's fitting with other texts that we think are probably by Heywood as well, that it sort of there's a sort of almost semi-genre thing going on here that's interesting me. But who knows? Other thoughts about this essay? We've got a plot, sort of, in the sense of everyone's buggering off. We've established where we are. We're now going to leave it straight away. But yeah, 4 brothers, father, daughter, family unit. Everyone's related so far.
Yeah.
We've not met anyone outside the family unit.
Not the captain.
Captain doesn't count. Not a character, just a proclamation. It might as well just be a walking drum. You know. Oh, if only there was a war somewhere. If only I heard the sound of a drum for war happening. Oh, look, there's a war happening. Stephen.
I'm curious as to the Prentices thing, because it does feel a bit like a kind of technicality, doesn't it? They come on, it's said they're apprentices and that they're bound and they can't do anything without their master, and then they immediately just bugger off somewhere more interesting. So I'm wondering how much apprenticing there is and whether these trades will come in useful.
Oh, that's true. You know, well, someone unexpectedly need to do some greengrossing later on. If you can identify this fruit, you will be allowed into the. We shall see. We shall see. Other thoughts before we move on, Lynn?
Well, I think that the author's just trying to have his cake and eat it too, where these are noble characters or high-born, high-status characters who have been reduced to making a living working, but the author is also concerned to valorize work and trades. So he's kind of trying to say both those things are good, are valuable, are admirable. Is work is a good thing, is a valuable thing, but also high status is also it's correct that we revere that. So he's kind of trying to walk that tightrope.
Lois and Stephen.
Yeah, I think have we already read? I don't think I have, but I think you might have played involving Crispin and Crispianus, who became shoemakers. A shoemaker, a gentleman. In fact, I think that's what it's called. Maybe not. Maybe it's later. But anyway, I mean, I think there are quite a few of these legends, and of course, I think aristocrats and even kings did have sort of membership of livery companies, although it didn't mean that they were in there scrubbing the floor and selling the potatoes and so on, but just that partly, I think, because these companies were very rich. And of course, nowadays, they're mainly charitable institutions anyway, with loads of money at their disposal. I think that they're really strange institutions. I mean, they have enormous amount of power.
Stephen?
Just from Lynn's point, some of the history plays kind of square that circle, don't they? They give the apprentices a chance to display martial valor in the defense of the city, which is, you know, this is one of the reasons why the historical plays always present the threat as being from outside London. And so the apprentices can kind of valiantly kind of defend it. I think there's a big thing in Edward IV, I think, isn't there?
Yeah, the stage direction even says the apprentices do good service or something, yeah.
Yeah, and we had a running gag, you know, the Prentices of London, yay! From that play, because the first third of play part 1 is just all prentices, as I recall, being valiant and doing valorous deeds. Anyway, we need to move on. So we're going to get some dumb showing with some presentering. So as we go into scene 3, which we've artificially broken up into lots of units, but it all sort of, I think, flows one into the other. So enter, or scene 2, depending on your point of view, enter marching Robert of Normandy, the captain, the 4 brethren, drum and soldiers. Enter the presenter.
Thus have you seen these brothers shipped to sea, bound on their voyage to the Holy Land, all bent to try their fortunes in one bark. Now, To avoid all dilatory news which might withhold you from the story's pith and substance of the matter we intend, I must entreat your patience to forbear while we do feast your eye and starve your ear. For in dumb shoes, which were they writ at large would ask a long and tedious circumstance, their infant fortunes I will soon express, and from the truth in no one point digress. Ye've seen the father of these four fair sons already gone his weary pilgrimage. Godfrey, Guy, Charles, and Eustace pressed to sea to follow Robert, Duke of Normandy. Imagine now, ye see the air made thick with stormy tempests that disturb the sea, and the four winds at war among themselves, and the weak barks wherein the brothers' sails split on strange rocks, and they enforced to swim to save their desperate lives, where what befell them dispersed to several corners of the world, we will make bold to explain it in dumb show. Far from their fortunes, all our seeing must grow.
Enter with a drum, on one side certain Spaniards, on the other side certain citizens of Bullen. The Spaniards insult upon them and make them do homage. To the citizens enter Godfrey, as newly landed, presumably quite wet, and half naked, confers with the citizens, and by his instigation they set upon the Spaniards and beat them away. They come to honour him, and he discloseth himself unto them. Which done, they crown him and accept him for their prince, and so exeunt.
Those citizens you see were Bulleners, kept under bondage of that tyrannous earl to whom the French king gave that ancient seat which to the wronged pilgrim did belong. In the height of his ambition, Godfrey, by shipwreck thrown upon that coast, stirs up the oppressed city to revolt, and by his valour was the usurper slain, the city from base bondage freed again. Men of Boulogne, wondering what strong hand had been the means of their deliverance, besought him to make known his birth and state, which Godfrey did. People, glad to see their natural prince procure their liberty, homage to him, create him Earl of Bullen, and repossess him in his father's seat, where we will leave him, having honour won, and now return unto the second son.
Enter the King of France and his daughter walking. To them Guy, all wet. It's nice. Stage direction actually does specify wet there, so I'm assuming they're all wet for all their entrances. The lady entreateth her father for his entertainment, which is granted, and rich clothes are put about him, and so exeunt.
As the French king did with his daughter walk by the seaside, from far they might espy one on a rafter float upon the waves, who as he drew more near unto the shore, they might discern a man, though basely clad, yet sparks of honour kindled in his eyes. Him at first sight the beauteous lady loves, prays her father to receive him home, to which the king accords, and in his court makes him a great and special officer. There leave we Guy, a gallant courtier proved, and of the beauteous lady well beloved.
And next dumb show, enter bandettos, with the Earl prisoner. Exeunt some of them with him to prison. Enter Charles, all wet, with his sword, fights with the rest, and kills their captain. They yield an offer to make him their captain, to which he agrees, etc. Sic exeunt omnes.
Charles, the third son, is by the winds and waves borne on a plank as far as Italy, and lands just at a lofty mountain's foot, upon whose top are many outlawed thieves, bandetti, bravos, such as keep in caves, made their abode. This crew assails young Charles, who in the bickering strikes their captain dead. They, wondering at his valour and being now without a leader, humbly seek to him to be their chieftain and command their strength, which at their earnest suit he undertakes. We leave him there, thinking his brother's drowned, nor knowing yet his father there lies bound.
And dumb show again. Enter a corpse after it, Irishman mourning. In a dead march. To them enters Eustace and talks with the chief mourner, who makes sign of consent after burial of the corpse, and so exeunt.
Eustace, the youngest of the four, was cast upon the coast of Ireland, and from thence he comes to travel to Jerusalem, supposing his three brethren drowned by sea. Thus have you seen these four, that were but now all in one fleet, a many thousand leagues severed from one another. I, in France, Godfrey in Boulogne, Charles in Italy, Eustace in Ireland, amongst the Irish kerns. Gentlemen, the self-same wind and fortune that parted them may bring them all together. Their sister follows them with zealous feet. Be patient, ye will wonder when they meet. 4 London prentices will, ere they die, advance their towering fame above the sky, and win such glorious praise as never fades, unto themselves and honour of their trades. Grant them your wonted patience to proceed, and their keen swords shall make the pagans bleed.
Yeah, it's typical getting a connecting flight to Jerusalem. You always have to go via Ireland. It's just one of those Ryanair issues, isn't it? Yes, right next door. Okay, a lot to unpack there. It's all sorts of stuff. I'm not quite sure I understand exactly what happens during the Irishman mourning sequence.
Yeah.
It's quite weird, the dumb shell, because it doesn't quite connect fully with. It's like go to Ireland, and then he leaves, and it doesn't quite connect. I assume he's sort of mourning for his dead brothers or something. That's sort of maybe. It sounds like, however, the stage direction sounds like there's a mourning going on already. So it's quite. I'm not quite sure how that works. But most of the rest of it, I was going, oh god, this is a bugger to do for audio. But actually, most of the time, the presenter does actually explain exactly what's happening during the dumb show, so it's actually fine most of the time. So yeah, even though he explicitly says, I'm gonna let your eyes sort this one out, and then actually no, I'm gonna explain as we go along anyway, so fair enough, fine with me. Lynn,
So I'm a pirate captain? So Charles, I'm a pirate captain now? Sounds like it. I mean, cool.
Yeah, why not? It's certainly bandit captain, yeah.
I'm not on the seas. I'm a banditti. Oh, it says banditti in the.
Yeah, he's caves. He's in charge of cave-based bandits.
Well, we're kind of still in Robin Hood mode, right?
Yeah, it's very like that, isn't it? They've all gone off and they've all become, princes or whatever. They start off wet and they all end up being moderately dry, I assume. So yeah, other thoughts? Weird way of starting a play. Lois.
Yeah, I assume that later on we're going to find out what was going on in that Irish scene, because it certainly isn't explained. But the other thing I was going to say is that I think there was actually a stage convention for dealing with wetness, which was for people to come on wringing out some article of clothing so that they didn't
dry
have
themselves.
to actually get drenched. I think it sort of turns up in the Desson Thompson stage directions book. I got into this because in Eastward Ho, a lot of people get soaked too, and they appear to come on, with something wet, which they wring out, and then they go off stage and come on with something dry that they're wearing, but they don't do a complete change of costume.
Which makes sense. Yes, I like that. That's one to remember for future reference. Don't get completely wet. One item of wetness, wring it out. Oh, please, the stage manager. Okay. Other thoughts? Stephen, are you waving or just were you waving?
Oh, I'm just, Evil genius. Put it in my hands.
I'm thinking in practice of splitting this presenter up between the three prologues. I think if you're going to have three prologues, you should have three presenters. I think they should fight it out over how it works.
And you can sense a little competitiveness of like, but the sort of top this, you know, there's like the stories are kind of trying to one up one another as they go along. Like, oh yeah, hold my beer, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, it's odd after that introductory scene to then jump to this lengthy, incredibly lengthy series. And that said, this could be really dynamic. This kind of performy storytelling kind of thing with narration at the same time is actually incredibly fun and very, very modish for today. Actually, I mean, it's you get this a lot in modern theatre. This kind of presenting of storytelling. So yeah, this doesn't feel alien in any shape of the imagination. Okay, we're going to go on to another scene now. I'm actually going to ask Lois, could you read Guy for the following scene, so that I'm not doing so much reading. So you're going to be a different brother to the brother you were earlier and who you will be again, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So scene 3. Or 4, depending on your point of view. Enter Guy and the Lady of France.
Vast stranger, can a skin so white and soft cover an heart obdurate, hard as flint? Since first I saw thee floating on the waves, the fire of love flew from your radiant eye, which like a sunbeam pierced unto my heart.
Sweet lady, all my powers I owe to you, for by your favor I ascend this height, which seats me in the favor of a prince that, did he know me, in the stead of doing me honor, would cut off my head. He did exile my father, cast me down, and spurred with envious hate, distressed us all. Since fortune then, and the devouring seas have robbed me of my brothers, and none left of all my father's sons alive, but I take this advantage and be secret, Guy. Meet this occasion and conclude with fate to raise again thy father's ruined state.
Fine, Earl, can you spend such precious breath, speak to yourself so many words apart, and keep their sound from my attentive ear, which, save your words, no music loves to hear?
What would you have me say?
Would I might teach thee. Oh, that I had the guidance of thy tongue. But what would that avail thee, foolish girl? Small hope in these instructions should I find to rule your tongue, if not to guide your mind.
My tongue, my thoughts, my heart, my hand, my sword are all your servants. Who hath done you wrong?
I dote not of your valor, but resolve me, and tell me one thing truly I shall ask you.
Be it not my birth, no question I'll deny. Doubt not my truth, for honor scorns to lie.
I do believe you. Fair knight, do you love?
To ride a horse as well as any man, to make him mount, curvet, to leap and spring, to chide the bit, to gallop, trot the ring.
I do not ask you if you love to ride. Something I meant, which though my tongue deny, look on me, you may read it in my eye. But do you love?
Oh, to march, to plant a battle, lead a host, to be a soldier and to go to war, to talk of flanks, of wings, of sconces, holds, to see a sally or to give a charge, to lead a wayward, rearward, or main host. By heaven, I love it, as mine own dear life.
I know all this. Your words are but delays. Could you not love a lady that loves you? 'Tis hard when women are enforced to woo.
Where is my man to bring me certain news? The king's commission sends me to the wars. The villain loiters in my business.
All this is from the matter, gentle knight. The king's commission may be signed at leisure. What say you to my question?
You would have me tell you true.
I dare speak true or do not speak at all.
Then, as I am true knight, I honor you, and to your service will espouse my sword. I wish you, as I wish the glorious sun, that it may ever shine, without whose luster perpetual darkness should o'ershade the earth. But tell me, lady, what you mean by love.
To love a lady is with heart entire to make her mistress of his whole desire, to sigh for her, and for her love to weep, as his own heart her precious favors keep. Never be from her, in her bosom dwell, to make her presence heaven, her absence hell. Write sonnets in her praise, admire her beauty, attend her, serve her, count his service duty, make her sole commandress of his powers, and in the search of love lose all his hours.
'Tis pretty for some fool that could endure it. How near am I unto this love, sweet lady? I love to mount a steed whose heavy trot cracks all my sinews, makes my armor crash. I love to march up to the neck in snow, to make my pillow of a cake of ice, that in the morning when I stretch my limbs, my hair hangs thick with dropping icicles, and my bright arms be frozen to the earth. I love to see my face be smeared in blood, to have a gaping wound upon my flesh, whose every mouth would make a lady swoon. I love no chamber music, but a drum to give me hunts up. Could your grace endure to lie all night within a sheet of mail by a drawn sword that parts not from my side, embrace a body full of wounds and scars, and hear no language but of blood and wars? Such is my life, such may my honor prove. Make war a lady, I that lady love.
Fie, you run quite from the bias clean, to love that dearly, which we hate so deadly. If love and I be one, you hate us both.
Then can I love no lady, by my troth. Madam, farewell. For under my command, the king your father sends 10,000 men to win the holy town Jerusalem. Thither must I, esteeming your high honor, like a bright comet, an unmatched star, but love no woman in the world, save war.
Exit Guy.
Go, Flint, strike fire upon thy enemy's steel, else I'll descend one step from fortune's wheel. Thou goest before, love bids me follow after. By thee, the king thy lord must lose his daughter.
Exit Lady. So, as an interesting little scene.
Yeah.
Do I recognise the guy from scene 1 in this scene? It's interesting chap. I mean, it's like they've got the war bug, and once you've got the war bug, he just he's quite obnoxious at times there. And it's I'm how does one unpack a scene like that? It's an odd one. It's an odd one. What is Guy trying to do?
I think he's just telling the truth. I mean, all these brothers show their true nobility by being crazy about war and fighting.
Yeah.
Telling it like it is to the lady who's, and I do love the moment when a lady just, the Lady of France just goes, "Oh, stop doing your aside and talk to me."
Yes.
There's lovely. I do love the lady's opening gambit of since I first saw thee floating on the waves, the fire of love flew from your radiant eye. Just bet it did. I bet you just look like a damp, very damp chap. Lynn.
It is. It's weird, but it's so interesting. You've got this sort of gender reversed wooing scene where the object of desire is being coy and resistant and perhaps disingenuous. It's just, what an interesting scene to play. Although I'm not really sure at this point how it fits into the overall plan of the play, of the text, of the story.
Well, this is the problem. We've got 4 different diverging plot lines now.
Yeah.
We had one scene where everything was quite well self-contained, and then we have this presenter dumb show that just blows it all out of the water. Just how are we supposed to follow all of these different plots?
Yeah.
So
Not 3, which is kind of a magic number in our storytelling tradition. There's always, the hero and his 2 rivals, or the heroine and her 2 ugly stepsisters, or whatever. 3 is a number that's sort of quite resonant in European derived storytelling. So why not 3? 4 just seems a little over the top.
Well, in a sense, it's not even 3; it's 6. 4 is 6 because you've got the father and the daughter as well.
And now we have the lady.
Another lady in disguise.
Who's reiterating Bella's decision. She's a version of that. This man who I care about is this man I have an attachment to is going off on an adventure. I'm going to follow him in disguise. Is what Bella said. So
yeah.
Was that 7 characters?
Well, I at least you could say that the lady is at least attached to, shall we say, the guy plot line on that sense, whereas everybody else is sort of separate and doing their own thing at the moment. So
yeah, and they're all heading to the same place, so maybe they'll all get there, fairly soon.
Fingers crossed. Otherwise, this is going to get very confusing. We might need a flow chart. Maybe the presenter will come on later on. We'll do a Venn diagram of what's going on. I'm assuming it's not going to be that complicated. It's just weird structurally. I'm interested in it. I like it in a weird way. I'm not actually knocking it. It's just interesting way of telling a story. Okay, let us move on. Things get a bit complicated as there's quite a few people on stage now, or there will be in a minute. I think it's not too bad initially. So scene 4 or 5, enter Charles like an outlaw with bandettos and thieves, including the clown.
Thieves and good fellows, speak. What should I call you? There's not a rogue among you that fears God, no one that has a touch of nor one that hath a touch of honesty. Robbers and knaves and rascals altogether. Sweet consort of vile villains, this to me. Am I not well preferred to become captain unto a crew of such pernicious slaves? I shall have such a coil to make you Christians, and bring you to some shape of honesty, that ere I do it, I shall make your bodies nothing but scarecrows to hang round these trees.
Brave captain, courageous, whom death cannot daunt. We have been all gentlemen and householders, but I was banished for nothing but getting of bastards. But this fellow flew from Venice for killing a man cowardly on the Rialto, some for one villainy, some for another. Our captain that you killed and now supply his place poisoned a worthy merchant in the city with ratsbane, and flying hither, for his valour we made him our general. But now, brave Cavallero, to thee alone we sing honorario.
Well, I must have you now turn honest thieves. He that commits a rape, sure shall be hanged. He that commits a murder, shall be murdered, with the same weapon that he did act the deed. He that robs pilgrims and poor travellers, that for devotion's sake do pass these mountains, he shall be naked tied to arms of trees, and in the days heat stung with wasps and bees. Ye slaves, I'll teach you some civility.
Captain, what shall be done with all that lies with a wench with her will, if he be hung that lies with one against her will?
I'll have him whipped.
See, I think the captain hath been a cook in his time. He can fit sweet meat with sour sauce. But what a fool is our captain to prescribe laws to outlaws. We would have kept the laws before in the city. We needed not to have been driven now to lead our lives in the country. But captain, since you are our captain, we will resign unto you all our treasures and prisoners and our spoils, take possession of them in God's name that came to us in the devil's name.
Your prisoners' spoils and treasure all bring forth, that I may seize them as mine own by right, as heir to him whom I have slain in fight.
Enter the thieves and villain, bringing in the old Earl bound.
Villains, I know you drag me to my death. Ye shall do me an exceeding grace.
I am deceived, but I have seen that face.
Come, come, you old grey-beard, you must be for our captain. If he says viva, then live. If not, thou diest, if thou were his father.
Villain, thou liest if thou wert my brother. You shall not die. Upon your low knee fall, and ask him pardon, or I'll hang you all.
Between joy and fear amazed in heart I stand. Doth my son Charles lead this unruly band?
Your only son, and all the sons you have, and borne his father's desperate life to save.
But how camest thou here? Why dost thou call thyself my only son, having 3 brothers more, which unto me thy beauteous mother bore?
Once were we 4, all fellow prentices, and after fellow soldiers, pressed to serve the good Duke Robert in his holy wars. But in a storm, our ships, so bravely manned, were wrecked, and save myself, none swam to land. They perished there. I, by the waves and winds, was driven upon the coast of Italy, where, landing naked, save my trusty sword, this crew of bold bandettos set upon me. But in a dangerous fight, by chance, I slew the luckless captain of this damned crew, who since have made me captain, here to stay, till fortune grant me a more prosperous way.
Mine eyes have vowed to die the self-same death my sons have done. Son, let me weep a while, to bring the like destruction to mine eyne. These in salt tears, they in a sea of brine.
Is this our captain's father? What villains were we to use him so roughly?
If the old fornicator had but told us so much, we should have had the grace either to have set him free or fortune to have used him more gently.
Since, father, we have met this happy day, secure with me amongst these outlaws stay.
Not for the world. Since I have lost my sons, all outward joys are from my heart removed. Vain pleasures I abhor, all things defy, that teach not to despair or how to die. Yet ere I leave the world, I vow to see his holy blessed tomb that died for me.
Then take along with you this bag of gold to bear your charge in every inn you come. Deny it not, relief is comfortable.
Thanks, my dear son. Expense it will defray, and serve to deal to poor men by the way. And now farewell, sweet Charles, thou all my sons, for now the last sand in my hourglass runs.
Ye too, conduct him safe beyond the mountains.
Shall I be one?
And I another?
Ye know the passages, be at your charge.
I am glad the silly man is weak and old. By heaven, my fingers tickle at his gold.
Old man, is your perch afloat? I vowed to cut his throat, but to have it every groat.
Exeunt clown villain Earl one way, the other banditti another way.
And now we to survey our cave, peruse our treasure, not by rape and spoil, though won by others, yet possessed by us. Yet henceforth shall we be used no violence. I'll make these villains work in several trades, and in these forests make a commonwealth. And then to civil nurture I can bring, they shall proclaim me of these mountains king.
Interesting moral questions being brought up here. If you become a mafia boss and move everyone in the direction of a legitimate business, what's the moral position of what happens with the money, where the money came from originally? Does money have a smell? Interesting plan of handing your father lots of gold and then escorting him away with people who really like stealing gold. Maybe not a good plan there, Charles. Maybe not a good plan. I love the clown just going, our captain's an idiot. If we liked having laws, we would have stayed where we left and obeyed laws. We wouldn't be outlaws. Clues in the name there. Clues in the name. So yeah, it's sort of fun. It's sort of weird. It's nice to have, at least for a moment, two of the plot lines meeting and then unfortunately separating again. But never mind. What can you do? So yeah. The clown was only banished for getting of bastards, so we can like the clown because he's just a fornicator. He hasn't murdered anyone or done anything really heinous like some of the other slightly nastier people, presumably of this particular band. Thoughts in the room, Alan?
Or at least hasn't been caught and accused of saying.
This is true. But yeah, I think the idea is you shouldn't make your clown too dark in terms of what the clown's done. I think which is a reasonable thing.
He's sort of basically one sandwich short of a picnic anyway, I think.
He seems sharp enough. I mean, he's critical of Charles's position on a perfectly sound note, and he's going to go off and do some robberyness. That said, he does say he's going to slit his father's throat, so maybe the clown's not that nice, but we shall see. Other thoughts? Lois?
I suppose it's useful that he's had some experience of a guild since he's planning to make these villains work in several trades. He can some useful suggestions about what they might do.
Yes, maybe one of the themes of this play is, what does one do with people who've gone through, say, a penal system? What kind of reform is there for people who are outside of the law? Maybe a good, honest trade. Maybe that's what they should do. Join a guild and be a upstanding response. Because that's obviously what's holding society together, isn't it? I can't remember what guild livery company Thomas Heywood was a member of at this stage, whether he was one, I'm not sure, but I'm sure later on when he starts writing civic pageantry he must be a member of one of them, but I don't know off the top of my head. That's one to Google later. Any other thoughts about this continuingly weird but strangely entertaining play?
Yes, so weird. I'm just looking again at the moment where the clown is explaining how they all got there. I was banished for the getting of bastards. Oh, that's not serious or anything. Someone was fled Venice for killing a man cowardly on the Rialto, and their former captain, their late captain, poisoned somebody, and for his valor, we made him our general. Poisoning somebody is valor? What? Like, so, I mean, I think that must be a deliberate dissonance there. Yeah. That he killed someone with poison, but for his valor, we made him our leader.
And it's that thing of, killing a man cowardly. I mean, it's this thing of, especially when you get to Charles saying, anyone who commits murder, he shall be murdered with the same weapon that did the deed. Hang on, how did you get into your position again? This definition of what's murder and what's a legitimate duel sort of question that comes up in the early modern world. So, yeah, because he's honourable. He can murder anyone he likes. It's fine. It's okay. Okay. Any other thoughts before we move on to our next scene? Stephen?
I think it's interesting, given that we started off with Prentices, that kind of making civil nurture happen somewhere else involves basically kind of replicating that system of working. There's kind of companies, the idea of a commonwealth. He doesn't just want to be the leader of a gang of people. And so maybe that's a little bit of a shout back that an audience would have recognised to the civic virtues that the trades embody.
I like that. Lynn?
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking. Yeah, I think that's important to notice. He doesn't want to become an emperor. He doesn't want to become some kind of absolute leader. The fact that does he actually use the word commonwealth? Yeah. That idea of a certain amount of sort of voluntary participation in the social contract is the model that he envisions, rather than being basically an autocrat.
Alan?
Yeah, except that's undercut by his final line, they shall proclaim me of these mountains king.
Yeah, well,
So, yeah,
if they proclaim him king, it's different. That's fine. And maybe he's only king for a year, like a Lord Mayor or something, But it's fine. It's fine. Okay, let's go on to our next scene then. I'm going to apologise to the Irish nation now, as I will be reading both The Irishman and Villain, so I'll be switching between two very bad accents. I'm so sorry. Okay, scene 5/6, depending on how you want to count it. Enter Eustace and his Irishman.
I think these upright, craggy mountain tops are, if the truth were known, highway to heaven. For it is straight and narrow, and some places are for the steepness inaccessible. Fair fall a rafter and a gale of wind. Oh, or I had gone to heaven away by waters, nearer than this by land. That way they found, who in the salt, remorseless seas were drowned. My brothers, whom I dream on when I sleep, and my eyes waking at their fortunes weep. Forgetting them, the friendly Irish coast gave me safe harbor. Thence I've traveled hither, even to these lofty hills of Italy, after Prince Robert, Duke of Normandy. 'Tis safer sitting in my master's shop, crying, "What lack ye?" than 'tis here to stay, to wolves and wild beasts to be made a prey.
Master, so Christ save me, I shall wait on thee. Wake for thee when thou sleepest, run for thee when thou biddest, and fly a thy errands like an arrow from a bow, when thou wantest wine or meat, or drink, or eat, or any other necessary provision. Now I have left my best friend in the grave, my friendship and my service you shall have.
Well, fortune hath preserved me to some end. It is for something that I did not sink when the salt waves my mouth and ears did drink. I might have fed the haddocks, but some power is my good master and preserves me still. Well, sword, in all my troubles stand me by. Thou art bound to win me somewhat ere I die.
Enter the clown and the villain, dragging the old Earl violently and rifling him.
give us the gold, my captain, you old anatomy.
Grey hair, beard, deliver, or you are but dead.
Take it, my friends. Full little needs this strife. Take the gold, and after take my life.
Nay, you old jack-o'-lent, 6 weeks and upwards. Though you be our captain's father, you cannot stay there, and for surety that you shall not go back and tell him what we've done to you. We'll kill you and fling you into some coal pit.
Content, and when we have done, we will return in word we have conducted thee past all danger of the mountains, and now prepare thee for the fatal stroke.
Thou dost me a great kindness, let it come. God take my soul. Now when thou wilt strike home.
He strikes his own soul down to Erebus, that lifts a sword that shall but touch his hair.
And by St. Patrick, I'll make him garter his hose with his guts that strikes any stroke here.
What have we here? A gentleman and his water spaniel? Let's rob them too, and after kill thee.
Content, Sirrah, stand.
Yes, I will stand, base wretch, when thou shalt fall, and strike thee dead, and trampling on thy bulk by stamping with my foot, crush out thy soul. Take that, you slave, forbidding Eustace stand.
He beats them both away, exeunt clown and villain.
Now, father, go in peace.
Thanks, my fair son, by whose stout valour I have freedom won. I can bestow upon you naught but thanks, unless you will divide this gold with me.
No, father, keep it. Thou art old and poor, but when I want, my sword shall purchase more.
By viewing him, my former griefs abound. Even such a one was Eustace that was drowned, which had he lived, his stature, years, and all would have resembled his, so straight, so tall, so fair, so strong, of such a worthy spirit. But his blessed soul by this doth heaven inherit. Grief for his death so near my heart does dwell, that for my life I cannot say farewell.
Exit Earl. Remains Eustace and Irishman.
The captain's father, whom the slaves had killed had not our coming intervented them, resembles mine in gesture, face, and look. But the old Earl, my father, is by this within the walls of fair Jerusalem. Else had I surely took this aged man to have asked him blessing. But what next ensues? I find these mountains will be full of news.
But before we hear the news, I just like the way Eustace going, God, that man seems so familiar. Oh, God, you know, just should have gone to Specsavers. Again, just apologies there to the Irish nation. But there were two voices required, and so I kind of had to go for it. I'm so sorry. Lynn.
So how are you going to stage this? Because Charles and the Earl recognize each other right off the bat, but Eustace and the Earl can't quite seem to make the connection. That person looks really he looks just like my dad, or he looks just like my son. What? How are you going to stage that so those moments are at least somewhat persuasive?
I don't know. Maybe
Costuming?
Eustace is wearing a hat. You know how disguise works. Alan.
Yeah, I must admit, I was confused earlier by the introduction of the Irishman, but it seems the Irish are actually in Italy, which is, of course, their natural habitat. Or is that just a leprechaun-y joke?
I don't know. It says upon the coast of Ireland earlier, so maybe. And it does sort of semi-explain what's going on with the morning thing in the dumb show, because the Irishman does say, now I have left my best friend in the grave, my friendship on my service you shall have. So it's like he's turned up at a wake, and this Irishman said, hang on, let me just finish mourning. Okay, I'm now yours for as long as you like. So it doesn't really explain it, but it sort of references it.
Unless it's that well-known mountain range that sits between Italy and Ireland.
Well, yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Irishman. Maybe they've left Ireland and they're on their way. I think that's probably so. The Irishman's come with him after we left our father. Now they've ended up in wherever it is that Eustace is again.
Italy somewhere.
Yeah, he's in Italy. Yeah. I don't know. Do the Irish wear peculiar headgear or wrap their faces in something?
I don't know. I mean, I think I can just about make a reason for why the Earl isn't recognisable, because he's probably covered in mud or something from being dragged around, and that might make him look dishevelled because they're about to kill him as well, and there's sort of almost references to that kind of thing in the text. And so maybe Eustace just is different in some way. You know, I don't know. Why are we looking for logic in this play? This play clearly has no interest in logic whatsoever.
Yeah.
But we need to find a reason why they don't recognise each other. Other thoughts before we could rejoin the scene? Just making a note there. Why do they not recognise? Why not? Why not? Give us a reason. Okay, because is the answer. So we now have the arrival of Charles. That's where we're going now, who's obviously, I'd say, in charge of the banditti. So enter Charles, clown, villain, and the banditti.
Captain, a prize! We too were assailed by 200, and of them 200, we killed all but these two. These are the remainder of them that's left alive.
Go, 2 or 3 of you, and fetch them in. If they resist, take their weapons from them.
I'd rather somebody else should attempt them than I now. But since there's no other remedy, give me 3 or 4 of the stoutest of our crew, and then God and St. Anthony.
More thieves and villains have begirt us round. Now, Eustace, for the honour of thy name, return them to their captain back with shame. I think the next bit must be a stage direction.
Yes, indeed. He sets upon them all and beats them.
Now, by mine honour, the best piece of flesh that ever in these woods held outlaw play. Even such a spirit Eustace had when he lived. We must not lose this gallant, if we can. We'll strive to make him our companion.
Ye slaves, I'll beat you all into a mouse hole, and like a baited lion at a stake, kill all the curs that come but near to bark. Ye gulls, have ye no better men among you? Defy your captain from me. Here I stand to dare him to a combat, hand to hand.
I were a bastard and not my father's son, should I refuse it.
By all the land I have left me in the world, that's but my grave, captain, thou honorest me.
By all the wealth I brought into these woods, that's but my sword, thou dost the like to me. Thou shalt have fair play, gallant, by mine honor.
False was my mother to my father's bed, if I should ask more odds of Hercules.
He dies upon my sword, disturbs our fray, or in the fight dares disadvantage thee.
Were I the world-commanding Alexander, I would make thee my Hephaestion for that word. I love thee for thy valor, Captain Thief.
'Tis that preserves thee from our violence. An honored mind lies in this outlaw's shape. So much I reckon of thy chivalry, thou wert master of an Indian mine. Thou shouldst not be diminished one denier. Securely fight thy purse's sanctuary, and in this place shall beard the proudest thief.
An honored-minded villain by my sword, a right good fellow and an honest thief. If I should have thee prostrate at my mercy, I will not kill thee for thy liberal offer. Yet win it, lad, and take it without fail. I scorn to have my purse go under bail.
He goes beyond me in heroic thoughts. To thine I stake down this. Stand all apart. He that steps in be subject to our curses. And now the better man, take both the purses.
It is a match. I'll seize them to thy grief. Now, true man, try if thou canst rob a thief.
They fight. As they are fighting, enter Bella Franca, pursued by an outlaw. She runs betwixt them and parts them. If ye were born of women, aid a woman.
Why, what's the matter?
Oh, turn the edges of your swords against him that in the forest would have ravished me.
Cease thy pursuit, and stranger, pause a while to hear the tenor of this lady's plaint.
Why then, king's truce. But let the purses lie. They'll fall to my advantage by and by.
Now, tell me, lady, what's your suit to me?
To save my life from foul inchastity, for passing by these countries on my way to pay my zealous vows in Golgotha, attended only by a little page, this villain with a crew of Russian thieves
Of course.
seized what we had first, haled my page from me, and after would have wrecked my chastity, but being swift of foot, fear lent me wings. Hither I hope in happy time to fly, either to save mine honour or to die.
Thy honour and thy life are both secured, and for a lady's sake you much resemble. Command my sword, my subject in my cave, where succour, all offenceless, you shall have. Sirrah, go you and scour upon that hill.
I go.
How like he is to Charles, by shipwreck dead, and he to Eustace, perished in the waves. But they are both immortal saints in heaven. Yet I am glad, because these shapes are theirs. My happy coming have ta'en up their strife, preserving mine own honour and my life.
So blushed my sister, and this outlaw thief hath a resemblance to my brother Charles. But she in London lives, a virgin pure. He in some huge whale's belly, too sure.
A pretty wench of faith. I'll marry her and make her queen of all this outlaw's crew.
I'm half in love already at first sight. How will this raging flame increase by night? By might?
Fair beauteous maid, resign your love to me. Mistress of all these forests you shall be.
Love me, I'll kiss away these tears of grief. Sweet wench, embrace a true man, scorn a thief.
How now, Sir Sauce? You are as bold, methinks, as if you were a free man of our trade. None but myself plead interest in this maid.
My interest is as much. In this 'tis greater, because that of the two I love her better.
Proud passenger, I'll make thee eat that word.
If I eat air, thou shalt digest my sword.
Revive this quarrel, let the former die. Fight we for her, and let the purses lie. Outlaw, I rather love to fight than brawl. I'll win from thee thy wench, thy purse and all.
Stay, gentlemen. Bella steps between Eustace and Charles.
By heaven, I scorn to stay. I'll till both the purses I have ta'en away.
My sword for me, my mistress, and my gold. My resolution shall my claim uphold.
But before this scene gets even more dramatically exciting, which it is about to, but also, shall we just go,
I did.
I mean, they don't recognise each other, and now they're all... I mean, it's going to be awkward at Christmas, isn't it? Just sitting around the table, just going, yeah, we might have said some things we can't take back. Yeah. How is it nobody's recognising anybody? Why is it suddenly... Did we misunderstand the earlier scene when he sent his father away with money? That maybe he didn't recognise it was his father. We didn't misread that, did we? He did recognise
we couldn't
him,
have,
didn't
because he talks about his brothers. I'm your only son.
Yeah. So there's no consistency there at all. Right. Okay. Yeah, I just hoped for a second that maybe we just misread the earlier scene, which would make the whole thing make sense. No, it doesn't make sense. It's fine it doesn't make sense because, hey, the audience is going to react at that point. They're going to go, no! And that's going to be quite fun. And that's clearly this is all about effect. It's not about logic. It's not interested in it. It's just interested in audience response, actually, isn't it? It's just constantly interested in audience
Maybe
response.
Charles doesn't realize that this is the same old man that he saw earlier, the one he knew it was his father.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Did Charles see Charles didn't see the Earl, did he? The second time. No. He's exited, so that at least he hasn't. There isn't a complete inconsistency. It's just like someone spread some fairy dust so that nobody else recognises anybody else from this point onwards.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the just very short-sighted. I'm just going to go with that. They all need glasses.
I think it's
apart from Charles, who went to Specsavers. That's
He wears
what
contact
I'm
lenses.
I think it's the power of preconceived ideas. She's in London. He's dead. Nothing I see is going to make me think otherwise.
Anchoring bias.
Actually, I probably wouldn't recognize anybody. I mean, I was just thinking, I've got prosopagnosia, that's that condition where you don't recognize faces. And I do, in fact, recognize people sometimes. But I think if I thought that everybody that I knew was somewhere else, I probably wouldn't recognize them if they walked in the door.
I have a little face blindness, too.
I can be deceived by hair. If someone's changed their hair, I can totally miss who they are.
That was a problem all the time when I was teaching.
It's a little bit of it. Actually, I had a student come to my classroom door alone to ask a question or something like that, and he could tell that I was struggling to recognize him. He takes off his hat and like he has all this curly hair. I'm like, oh yeah, you. So embarrassing. Oh, well.
Anyway, we should finish the scene because it reached a dramatic moment. The two brothers are about to go for each other. The sister, who is their /love, is in between them, and then enter the clown running betwixt them.
What do you mean, gentlemen, to fight amongst yourselves? We should be friends and have more need to take one another's part to fight against your enemies. We shall all be slain, killed, murdered, massacred. For my own part, if I had 9 lives like a cat, they were all sure to die one dog's death.
Why? What's the matter, fellow?
Oh, noble captain, we shall all be slain. Tancred, a prince of Italy with an army, hath beset the foot of the mountains, and hath vowed to make venison of all us poor outlaws, kill us like deer. Can't be with you. I'll go shift for one.
Dear will we be to him before he do it, and dearly sell our desperate carcasses. Kind stranger, wilt thou take a truce with me? Thou shalt divide with me my dignity. We two will jointly o'er these mountains reign, and by our valors our estate maintain.
Because I hear thy life in jeopardy, and thou hast dealt with me so honorably, receive my hand. Now I am wholly thine. And ye mad rogues, I am half your captain now. Look, when you see me nod, ye crouch and kneel make legs and curtsies and keep bare your crowns.
'Tis hard to teach them manners that's clowns. As for my own part, here's a leg, here's a cap, here's a knee. All these, sweet half-captain, I reserve for thee.
Speak, do you all accept me?
We do.
Then, brother thief, I am turned outlaw too. But to do no man wrong, I make that law, only to pass this tedious summer here, till we our downcast fortunes may uprear.
You shall with me in end, in mine, in all.
And
But hark.
there is a soft march.
But hark, I hear our enemies' drums do brawl.
Their voice is welcome. Oh, that I had with me as many good lads, honest prentices from East Cheap, Cannock Street, and London Stone to end this battle, as could wish themselves under my conduct if they knew me here. The doubtful day's success we need not fear.
Oh, for some Cheapside boys for Charles to lead. They would stick to it when these outlaws fail. Wishes are wind. Let's think ourselves well manned. We'll sooner die than fly. So make a stand.
Enter Tancred with drum and soldiers.
Are these the outlaws that disturb our peace? Think they, these mountain tops, can shelter them from our revenge and just assembled arms?
Come, let us prepare to answer them.
Which be the chief of these confounded troops?
Prince, I am one of them.
And I another,
I am his friend.
and I his outlaw brother.
How dare you stand contemptuous against your liege? Captains, ye are our men.
That we deny. I am a stranger, Tancred.
So am I.
Such valour is reported to appear in the brave deeds of these rude foresters, that we could rather wish they were our friends to dwell in cities than keep out in caves. Considering now what wars we have in hand, their martial spirits might much advantage us, would they but keep within some honoured bounds. We'll work them, if we can, to our alliance, and rather motion love than proud defiance.
Why comes the County Palatine in arms to fight against unarmed foresters? If thou wilt win renown, bend thy brave forces against pagans that besiege Jerusalem. Small fame and honor canst thou win thee here. Beside our cheap lives, thou shalt purchase dear.
We have reformed these villains since we came, and taught them manners and civility. All rape and murder we repay with death. Amongst us does not live a ravisher.
I have heard no less, but that you weed out such as pass the bounds of Christian honesty, which makes me rather offer peace than war. But what bright virgin stands so discontent?
My life.
My love.
The word had been well spent if I had said mine too. For I protest of all this number I affect her best.
Believe me, fellow partner in my... Well, no, wait, that's not my line. Oh, it is. Believe me, fellow partner in my rule, you offer wrong to impart in this my love.
Half of all's mine. I claim it as my due. In which, bright virgin, I accept not you.
I do contain my love with much ado, for methinks I could turn outlaw too.
What, do you think to have a double share? Half of her is mine. I will not bate a hair.
By thine thou own words thou gavest me half at least.
But I'll have all. My title is increased.
Stay, captains. For our annual crown's revenues, we would not lose the weakest of you both. So much do we affect your chivalries. Let me take up this mutual enmity. Your quarrel is for her. Both would enjoy her. You claim her as your right.
'Tis true, I do.
And, Captain, you say she belongs to you.
True, valiant prince. My hopes shall his destroy. Thou art mine own, sweet wench. God give us joy.
Then, till this strict contention ended be, deliver this bright virgin unto me. Here shall our former hate and discord cease. This lady shall be hostage of your peace. Unto thy charge we give 10,000 men, as many soldiers we resign to thee. Make me her keeper till these wars be done. Ye have the price, I my content have won.
Honor hath taught the Palatine to speak.
Since what we both desire, one can but have, take charge of her. Let me receive the charge of a great army and commanding power. Before I marry, I must win my dower.
So say I too, and outlaw life, adieu.
And welcome love, which I must keep for you. Their drums shall scold, mine shall have time to cease, and whilst they war, with her I'll make my peace. Are you content, sweet lady?
I must do that which amongst you all best pleaseth you. I am a prisoner, prisoners must obey. You say I shall, and I must not say nay.
Do so, sweet love.
Till these wars ended be, I prithee, sweet love, keep thy heart to me.
Come, captain, we bequeath you to your charge to march with speed towards the holy wars. This lady, as our life we will esteem, and place her in the honour of a queen.
So, just when we thought it was all getting quite icky and complicated, it gets even more icky and more complicated. So it's like fighting's about to happen, and then Clown comes on and says, "Oh no, someone's coming to sort out all the bandits." Is Tancred. And Tancred turns up and goes, "These are stout-hearted fellows. I wonder if I could turn them away from a life of crime and join the army." And who's that over there? Which, continues the awkward love triangle thing into a rectangle now, admittedly with someone who's not a blood relation. We can see where that's going. It's slightly annoying that Bella doesn't have more to say, but what she does say is actually too on point. It is quite nice that she does make the point of, really, what say do I have in this situation? I think you'll find I have none. So play does acknowledge that point. Lynn.
Yeah, exactly. What poor Bella and poor actress who has to play Bella. She's on stage this whole time. How is she reacting? Like, how is she responding to all of this? Is there something we could do with that onstage presence to sort of mitigate the ickiness here, or to at least give her some some agency, some take on this that humanizes her? It's something to think about.
Bella is constantly present, but doing very little. I mean, it's like the first scene that she's in with her father. She's there at the beginning, they chat for a bit, and then everybody else comes on, and Bella says absolutely nothing for pretty much the rest of the scene until the very end. So, I mean, it's weird. I suggest that, I mean, the number of female parts in this is partly to do with doubling, though if you've got the character on stage, it would be nice if they said something. So that's not wholly where the reason for this is coming into place. So
Young and inexperienced boys, I take it.
Maybe, Alan.
Plus, Bella hasn't actually recognised either of the others.
No. Oh yes, nobody here recognises anybody, so it's not like she's not saying anything because they're my brothers. I think she would have mentioned that if she'd recognised them.
She might have done.
It's really weird. And it was interesting because earlier when we were doing the dumb shows, and I was just talking about because we have this massive dumb show, and I was sort of wondering whether you could actually split the dumb show up into chunks before each brother comes on stage. And you could almost make that work, actually. So sort of introductory bits to each of these scenes. Obviously, we haven't returned to Godfrey, have we, since the dumb show? He's not turned up. So we've sort of got coverage for those dumb shows. but though of course the dumb shows are now sort of colliding into each other, so it doesn't necessarily work. But it's just a thought about whether that dumb show earlier is a bit too big for its own boots, and whether it should be split out a bit. I don't know if that's a viable present. I'm still sort of enjoying it for all the. I mean, it seems to be just striving for effect. It doesn't seem to be interested in consequences. I mean, obviously, we have a problem coming up. At some point, they're going to reach the Holy Land, and this is not going to go well. Just going to say. There's going to be some issues. It's, the issues we've got so far are actually relatively... I mean, I don't know where the Russian thieves come from. How the hell where did they turn up from?
Russia.
Well, potentially. Depending on where the extent of Russia is at this point, or for that matter, by the time this video goes out.
They've been rushing around all over the place.
No.
Yeah. Lynn, were you waving? No. Okay. I think we've possibly discussed the end of that sequence enough. Just time for final thoughts, I think. Again, I'm kind of enjoying it. It's a weird romp. It's got some problems so far, and I know it's going to have some more problems later on. But it is quite contained. It's quite a tight unit of action. Even though it's got four brothers, a father and a daughter, there still aren't that many people on stage at any one time. So there's part of me thinking how tight a unit this is for touring, and that interests me. Obviously, anything that keeps general cast size down is appealing. But the whole thing does feel a bit like a spoof most of the time. It does feel like the whole thing is not real. It's not quite going all the way, but it's starting to feel, because none of it makes any sense historically, none of it makes any sense geographically, none of it really makes any sense in terms of any kind of character. It's just sort of telling a bit of a shaggy dog story so far, and idolising prentices. I love the way Eustace and Charles just turn to the audience and go, "Oh, what I would do with some Prentices of London." If only. Some Cheapside boys. Any final thoughts? Stephen, any final thoughts of the play so far?
Two, really. It occurred to me while we were listening that we've been talking about boys, that if you have something that's explicitly about apprentices, then you could actually that could be quite nice parts for boys, couldn't they? They don't have to be just playing sort of females, because they're the right age to play apprentices, the apprentices of the company. And the other thing is, I think I have a feeling I've said this before, but it's kind of like a Marvel movie, isn't it? It's a Marvel superhero movie, and they're continually there's one, I can't remember the name of it, but they're continually finding trivial excuses for these superheroes to thump each other. And of course, they can never do any real damage. Nobody actually has any weapons or anything sensible, So they just sort of thump each other. And then somebody comes in and, puts himself between and goes, "No, you shouldn't thump each other because we're invaded by robots from outer space." And, it's kind of like that, really. These guys are in the sort of 1590s equivalent of the lycra and spandex. What we want is to see these guys having a go at one another, and we'll accept any excuse whatsoever. But we know they really love each other, just because they're like the Marvel guys, but they're all superheroes, so they're all on the same side. These are all brothers, so it's perfectly safe. But we do want to see them trying to knock lumps out of one another.
Yes, we haven't really talked about that. There are sort of extensive opportunities for fight scenes in the text so far, and that's possibly a lot would have been made of that. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I love Stephen's comparison with that sort of a very complex, like masculine, if not exactly male relationship, because superheroes are sometimes female, that it's bonded and intimate yet combative at the same time. Like what is it? But evidently that's something people do. I mean, I've just been thinking about the passage in the bit we just read where Charles and Eustace are basically trying to out chivalrize each other. Like, oh, he's so chivalrous. I gotta be more chivalrous than he is. And you get around, and I was thinking, are they ever gonna actually fight? Or are they just gonna basically say, I honor you. No, I honor you more. Like, love you, man. No, love you more. It's like the way competitiveness manifests itself is very funny in that sequence. So yeah, this play so far is super weird, but it's also really interesting in the way that it's engaging with the tropes that it's using. I mean, we've got some duck stuff we haven't talked about, of course. So yeah, I'm just really curious to how this is all going to shake out. Is it just going to fall to pieces in the end, or will there be some kind of sort of satisfying tie-up of all these loose ends?
Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I must admit I'm getting a very strong pantomime vibe from the whole thing. And I do wonder, Lois mentioned Knights of the Burning Pestle earlier on. And this almost feels like this was a trial run at that same sort of approach of let's take a fighty storyline and take the mick out of it. I mean, the geographical and historical incongruities are extreme, even for the early modern. I think it would be played at pace and probably best played to a late night audience who've had a tincture or several, who would not be actually that conscious of the discontinuities.
It does feel like it's the kind of thing that Kleiman and Kleimides sort of touches on, though that's a lot broader than this in some of its absurdities, but not that far off. And it's not as meta as the games that Pestle plays. I don't think. I think it's playing around with things, but it's not necessarily tipping its hat as often. It's interesting question how you play this. Lois, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I always enjoy these Heywood plays. I think he was himself, a very educated man, and I knew a lot of classical literature, and I'm sure knew perfectly well that none of this makes any sense historically. So I take it he's writing, I would call it something like comédie héroïque, which is what Rostand called Cyrano de Bergerac, something that is heroic, but also comic, and the heroism is taken so far that it becomes comic. And of course, it's not just comic. There are moments of pathos and so on, and Cyrano, in fact, ends relatively tragically, but also triumphantly, depending on how you see it. I don't know. It seems to me that it was obviously a very popular play from what we read. I mean, they refer to it in the same way they refer to the Spanish tragedy, and joking about it, but joking about it because it's a play that can be put on a lot, and people really like to see it, and you can see why.
Okay, well, we've got 2 more sessions to find out what's going to go down, as it were, with the Four Prentices of London. All that remains is thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. I might have fed the haddocks.